I get asked a lot, what's the difference when it comes down to it between a very well-built RV and a traditional RV? And oftentimes, you can point to the assembly line, you can point to the design, you can point to the materials that they use. At the end of the day, it's kind of a combination between everything. There's a lot of things that make a quality RV really well. I think more importantly, it's the leadership's approach to building a quality RV. So, you may look at a brand like Forest River, right? They have tons of brands underneath that Forest River umbrella, from motorized units to towable, bumper towable units, to fifth wheels, travel trailers, boats. They make buses, they make portable, toilet stations. They make all sorts of stuff. And you may point to them and just blanketly say all their products are horrible, but you can't, because each division has its own leadership. And I think the folks over at Palomino with the Paws division kind of proved that you can't just say, okay, just because it's a brand that has several sub-brands, and I may have one of those sub-brands and I haven't had a good experience, well, all the brands obviously are bad. And that's totally not the case. Again, Palomino Paws is the perfect example of exactly how that's not the case. It's arguably one of the best built RVs in the world, and it comes out of a factory that's under the ownership of Forest River. So, I honestly don't think that there's any one particular brand that stands out amongst all as being the worst brand. I think when it comes down to it, you tend to get what you pay for in the RV industry. Not all the time. I know some folks are going to say, well, you can buy a DRV, you can buy a super high-end unit and still have problems. That's absolutely true. But at the end of the day, if you are specifically looking for quality and you're willing to pay for that quality, then you're going to get a better built RV. If you're specifically looking for luxury and you're willing to pay for luxury, while at the same time realizing that perhaps what I'm paying for from an appliance perspective, from a wood perspective, from certain features, isn't necessarily going to equate to quality, well, then you also have to understand that as well. You get what you pay for. If you specifically are wanting to pay for the highest quality, the best built RV you could ever have, well, you can pay enough and get that. And I think I proved that point with some of the recent collaborations I've done. If you are looking for everything, it's unlikely you're going to find everything. You could luck out. Believe it or not, for every 100 negative comments I get, I probably get 1,000 or more comments from folks saying, I have that unit and I've never had a problem. So it's obviously, a minority in terms of the number of people that really have major numbers of issues with RVs, but it does exist, and it is a percentage. And if you compared per se against the TV industry or Samsung or the vehicle industry, the percentage is probably higher because you have far less computer automation, far less control over the manufacturing process from an automation perspective than you do versus the electronics industry or the automotive industry. I bring this up because most people, when I showcase an RV, when they call it junk, or if they believe that an RV is built like junk, or they just believe the whole industry, that's all they turn out. Again, it's not truly understanding that each division, each brand, each employee is different. And how employees view themselves within a corporate environment, how they work, what their work ethics are personally, all play into what that end product is, and if you get a product that you would consider to be a high quality product or not. For every million people that say DeWalt makes the best power tools, there's some folks that have said, I have a horrible experience with them, so I switched to Milwaukee. Or vice versa. They may have had Milwaukee and they had a bad experience, so they switched to DeWalt. They may have had a bad experience with both of those brands and they switched to Ryobi, and now they have the best experience ever. But the point of this video is to simply talk about the fact that if you go into RVing with the perception that every RV, no matter what you pay, whether it's a $15,000 RV or whether it's $115,000 or whether it's a $1.5 million RV, should be perfect, well, you're not factoring in the human element. You're not factoring in the fact that there are people that have to make that product, and when they assemble that product and put it together, there's likelihoods that things aren't going to turn out the way that you would want it, even though it may pass their muster and get sent off to a retail dealership. Now, again, the only reason I make this video is for every video I post on an RV floor plan, there's somebody who thinks it's horrible. There's somebody who thinks it's sterile, or it's just the worst thing they've ever seen, or it's so bland and they should do this, or sure, it's high quality, but I would never buy one because it's so ugly or because it costs so much. And again, the point of this is understanding the fact that you get what you pay for. Think about that. I want you to focus in on that. Not just you get what you pay for in terms of that whole additive that, you get junk if you don't spend enough, or you get high quality if you spend more. No, you get what you specifically are hunting out to pay for. If you are specifically looking for the very best built RV ever produced, you're going to pay more for it, but you're also not going to get certain things. You're not going to get certain attributes that simply don't last as long or tend to fail quicker. You might get something that's more sterile because you're just paying for something that's reliable. That's kind of the key behind it. Just like I want something that's going to last forever, and I want something lightweight. The two typically don't add up well together, because the more you strip out weight, the lighter something becomes, and the lighter something becomes, you could arguably say it's not built as robust. It's not built to the same tolerances. It's not built as strong as something that weighs a little bit more. And sure, manufacturers like Ford, GM, and Ram try to reduce weight from their trucks to make them lighter, but that's typically to give you payload capacity back. But what they're not stripping away are the key fundamentals that make the truck strong. So yes, you can develop engineered components in that substitute weight for strength by creating an engineered design that gives you more strength, but then you're adding cost because now you're paying for that design. Does that make sense? The simpler the design, the easier something is to manufacture, the quicker something goes down the assembly line, the lighter you want it to be, and the less focus that needs to be had in terms of quality control. Well, that's going to lead to a cheaper product, but a more readily available product, because it's going to work its way down the assembly line quicker, and you'll have more product available. The more engineering that has to go into something, the more development, the more cost, the more structural engineering, the more brains that have to think about how they're going to make something work mechanically, from an engineering standpoint, from architectural standpoint, all of that equates to something that's going to cost more, especially when you factor in more engineered components that are designed to be just as strong or stronger, but lighter weight. So the whole point of this video, again, is to help you think about the fact that as much as we want things to be high quality, as much as we want to focus on things being as best built as possible, there's trade-offs, and there's always going to be trade-offs. And most of the time, those trade-offs are going to be, well, either I'm going to pay a lot of money and I'm going to get something that's relatively plain but engineered incredibly well, or I'm going to pay a lot of money for something that's very complex, but I'm paying for the technology, but I may not get the reliability and longevity that I would hope for, or I'm paying a little bit of money and I'm getting something that was produced quickly, I'm getting something that was produced with less technical expertise behind it, less engineering, less complexity, but in a greater volume or more quantity, and that's why it's more available. So when you look at RVs in general, one of the reasons why you can go to so many dealerships and buy RVs is because they can spit them out so quickly. If they didn't turn them out as quickly as they do, you wouldn't have RV dealership lots to look at. You wouldn't have half the inventory. You wouldn't be able to go and pick one out and have one that same day. It would all have to be mail ordered. And even in that event, you'd be on huge waiting lists. So you have to ask yourself, is it worth the trade-off? Some people are going to say, I'd rather wait and get the best quality product I can get, even if I have to wait. Some people would say, I want it right now, and I want to pay for something, and I want to take it home with me today. Well, who are you, right? What type of purchasing criteria comes into play? If you feel like you should go on any dealership lot and find a super high-end luxury RV completely stocked up at a dealership lot, all of them the most current year, and you want the top quality, fit and finish, you want the highest levels in terms of standards when it comes to, overall quality control, how things are put together, how it's designed to last, you're probably not looking at the right industry. The automotive industry is probably more in line with that. And even then, you have problems with technology, with the way things are designed, with recalls. It all exists still. So I know this is kind of an interesting video, but it's one that I think is important, because for everyone who thinks something's built like junk, I want you to think about the process that goes into building something in a way that gets it at a dealership lot to where you can actually purchase it today in enough quantities to where you have a choice. And then understanding that with that choice, with that quantity, comes sacrifice. And part of that sacrifice is just having an assembly line that can pump these things out, that can, spit them out incredibly quick in the quantities people are looking for, having the labor force and the supplies to be able to do that. Anyways, just something to think about. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.